Jacob, Leah, and Rachel. After his wonderful dream, Jacob continued on his long journey to Haran. As he approached the town, he saw some shepherds in the fields with their sheep, and there was a well nearby with a large stone covering its top. He asked the shepherds where they were from, and they said Haran. He then asked if they knew Laban, and they replied that they most certainly did. Jacob wondered why they were waiting near the well and not opening it to give water to their sheep. They told him that it was the custom for them to wait until all the flocks had gathered. Then they would remove the stone and give water to the sheep. Then they said, "And here comes Rachel, Laban's daughter, with his flock." Rachel was a shepherdess. So Jacob greeted her, explained who he was, and removed the stone to help her get water for her flock. She ran to her father to let him know about Jacob, and Laban, as soon as he knew that his sister's son was there, hurried out to meet him. He greeted him fondly and brought him back to his home. After Jacob had stayed with him for a month, Laban said, "Just because you are a relative, you should not work for me for nothing. Tell me what wage you want." Now Laban had 2 daughters. Leah, the elder, had weak eyes, but Rachel was beautiful, and Jacob was in love with her. He said to Laban, "I'll work for you for 7 years in return for your younger daughter." Laban said he thought it would be better for her to marry Jacob than some other man, so he agreed. Jacob stayed with Laban and worked for 7 years to marry Rachel, but it seemed only a few days because of the love he had for her. When the 7 years were up, Jacob said to Laban, "It is time for me to marry Rachel." So Laban arranged the marriage ceremony, and Jacob thought he was marrying Rachel, but Laban had tricked him. In those days it was the custom for women to wear a veil which obscured their face. The morning after the wedding, Jacob found he had married Leah, not Rachel. He was angry and said to Laban, "What have you done to me? I served you 7 years for Rachel. Why did you deceive me?" Laban simply said that it was not the custom for the younger daughter to be married before the elder. But then he said, "Wait to the end of this bridal week, and then you may also marry Rachel, in return for another 7 years' work." And Jacob agreed. So he married Rachel, and he loved her more than Leah. It was quite normal in those times for men to have more than one wife. After 14 years of working for Laban to gain Rachel for his wife, Jacob wished to leave and return to his homeland. But Laban begged him to stay and name his wages. Under Jacob's stewardship, Laban's flocks had increased greatly. So Jacob suggested that he take every speckled or spotted sheep, every dark-coloured lamb, and every speckled or spotted goat. These would be his wages, and meanwhile he continued to look after Laban's flocks. He worked for Laban for another 6 years, making 20 years altogether, and he became prosperous and owned large flocks. Jacob serving Laban for 20 years shows us that we have to work long and patiently to attain anything that is really worthwhile, and that our work should always be done from the desire to be useful to the Lord and the neighbour.